Welcome to the Simple Doesn't Mean Easy podcast. We are here weekly, working at simplifying things in our lives one day at a time, one simple step at a time. This way of simplifying things and working at eliminating some of the junk in our lives doesn't make things easier, but it sure makes them better. I'm your host, Michelle Visser, and today we're talking about, words that I tend to see as kind of ugly. Words that I know are well meaning and well intentioned. So I want to try to tread carefully and explain my thoughts behind what I mean when I say no one can be self sufficient. And I know, a lot of things that we talk about, folks are here working towards being more self sufficient. And I know I talk about relying less on prepared foods, relying less on the grocery store when you can. But I really hate the term self sufficient. And we're going to talk about why. Guys, we talk so much on this show about our toxic environment and the toxic products around us. I have great news for you. I have found the most amazing small business that is truly making a difference. Please go meet hearthandhomesteadstore.com. They're making all natural products, genuinely all natural, with simple ingredients: plants, herbs, grass fed tallow. And these simple ingredients have a profound effect on our skin. They're promoting cell growth, reducing inflammation, improving hydration, and so much more. Please go visit our sponsor, hearthandhomesteadstore.com. Snag some amazingly good for you products, from lip balm to face lotion to body butter, natural perfumes, all natural diaper cream, and the most amazing soaps you will ever try. So, you're going to feel so pampered after you try some of these products. You are going to be hooked like I am. Save 15% off with the code soulyrested and enjoy free shipping on all orders over $100. Don't miss this. Go to hearthandhomesteadstore.com. Okay, so here we are, our last episode before a Christmas break. We are going to take off the next I think 2 weeks. Maybe it falls 3 weeks, actually. I think it's just gonna be 2 weeks. That's my intention, um, for Christmas and New Year's. And here we are, the last time that we're chatting before the holidays, and this might seem like a really weird topic, but honestly, it makes perfect sense in my mind. So we'll see if it does in yours, as we work through this idea today. But w okay, we can't all none of us can be self sufficient. And the past few months, seeing some of the natural disasters, specifically Hurricane Helene, and seeing some people that I know either personally or that I know through online friendships and connections, seeing the way that Helena, is it Helene or Helena? I should know this. Well, seeing the way that it impacted um, so many people that I know personally. This has been something that's been rolling around in my mind for months now. And I just wasn't sure if I definitely wanted to do an episode about this, if I was ready to talk about it. But I've just been thinking a lot with the holidays approaching about the real meaning of the holidays to me personally as a Christian, and the way that my view of everything else in life is always impacted the more that I'm focusing on the true meaning of Christmas and of a savior who has come into the world, and he's done that to save helpless people such as ourselves. Um, it just makes it so blaringly obvious to me that we're not self-sufficient. We never can be. We were never intended to be, and we never will be. But the irony that I saw throughout the weeks of people facing true devastation. And they were also some people who are online influencers who were right in the path of the horrible storm. And to see some of them, I don't even try and think about, I wonder if she's friends with so and so and who she's talking about. Because honestly, the ones I'm thinking of, literally, I don't even know their name, their account name. They're not personal friends of mine, but um, either I follow their accounts and their stuff doesn't come up often, but I did see stuff during the hurricane, or Instagram fed me some stuff because, this is my niche. This is the homesteading, um, self-sufficient, I'm doing air quotes, kind of niche of things and topics that Instagram knows I'm involved in, I talk about, I pay attention to. So one way or the other, I was fed a lot of these accounts. So it's not people I know personally, but um, to see how they took this time to promote their Instagram or to promote an e-course that they offer. And, there they are with their town potentially devastated, or very literally their neighbors losing their home. And here they are, in my opinion, with a little bit of audacity, saying, look, we're on day 7 or day 10 or whatever without power, but I was prepared. And let me show you, I have my fire going in the yard, and we have our cast iron on the fire, and we're cooking our food. And, they're showing us their buckets and their food that they had prepared and how they had their water stored. And I should stop right here and I should say, I can't know the heart or the intention of these people that I don't even know that are coming up on my social media feeds. But I mean, it very well could be that they had nothing but good intentions and they were using this experience to teach others. Absolutely. But too many times it seemed so blatantly, I don't know, almost a marketing ploy that they were taking disaster, and instead of showing us, here's how I'm going out and I'm helping my neighbor, or showing us how all their neighbors were getting together and helping each other. It was more about, let me show you how I was prepared. And I'm thinking the sheer irony, like, okay, maybe you're on day 10 without power, but do you see the destruction around you? Do you see how in a matter of hours a town was wiped out? Maybe the very town that this person, lived in, they're just up on a hill and didn't lose their home. And I'm thinking, how can you say that, oh, see, I'm self-sufficient because I was prepared for these 10 days without power, when it's so obvious that could have been your house that was leveled in a matter of minutes, and your buckets with food in it wouldn't have mattered too much. Or what if the entire nation was under attack and everybody was affected? Like, how long, seriously, how long can you really have everything that you need right there where you are? I mean, the thing is, no matter how self sufficient we think we are, everybody is connected to others. And that's the way it's supposed to be. No man is an island. We weren't made to be. We are made to be relational. We are made to be connected. We all have our own talents and abilities and interests and ways that we thrive. And when we get together as a community and we pull our forces and we pull our talents and our interests, it makes all of us better. But when we work at being independently prepared for anything, we're losing out on so much. Because, first of all, if we got over this mentality and we realized, oh, no matter what, I am not truly going to ever be prepared for everything. But let me think about what I could be prepared for. Let me think about what specific skill I'm pretty good at, or I could be good at, or I would like to learn. And then I can use my abilities to help others. Others can use their unique abilities that I don't have to help me. And in a true disaster situation, one way or another, we might survive and get through. Um, so I don't know. I just saw so much of it, and I think you get the point. I don't think I need to go on with other examples in my head of things that I saw that people were doing, and I'm just I would say I was chuckling inside, but I wasn't because I had friends literally dealing with devastation, and them having a bucket of beans in their basement and having a cast iron pan they could put on a fire to cook something was not gonna fix their problem. There's no way, and I'm so thankful that they were surrounded by others who cared, others who traveled hundreds of miles to come and help, and then people right there in their town, and that the people around them didn't have this mentality that, "Well, I can take care of myself. We're gonna be okay." I don't know. Um, don't get me wrong. You guys know this, for what I think about this. It's very good to have survival skills. It's very good to have skills that our grandparents never passed down to our parents or to us. It's really good to relearn those things for so many reasons. But I wouldn't say the main reason that I ever wanted to learn these skills, ever, was so that in a situation of disaster, I could take care of my family. I'm not going to deny that it's a nice thought that, well, there are certain things we could do and we could survive and we could be okay. But that was never, ever my reason. It was much more about the simplistic joy that comes from learning these skills. It was much more about connecting to my roots, connecting to what my grandparents would have taught me if I had known them as an adult and if they could have taught me. Like that gets me so much more excited. And then once I started learning a few of these things, I realized how much better some of them were than what I had been doing and seeing my whole life. Just for one example, chicken eggs. I had no idea that those pure pale white eggs that I was buying, that when you crack them open, they were so light yellow yolks. No idea what I was missing. I had no idea. I had never had a free range chicken egg until we started raising our own chickens. And when you compare just the sheer visual difference in the eggs as you crack them open, it's mind blowing. And then as I started learning more about the nutritional value of those eggs and how it gets even higher when the chickens are free ranging and they're eating bugs all day long, and how the chickens not only are providing me eggs, but by eating those bugs, they're eating fleas and ticks and bugs that would become a problem for us without the chickens doing that. Like it goes on and on. I didn't know any of that though. I just thought we live on an area that would allow us to have chickens. We have an old building that used to be a chicken coop. And hey, it'd be kind of cool to have at the time. I literally thought, I'm doing air quotes, free eggs. The eggs cost a whole lot more than if you would buy them at the store. Even now, with the price of eggs going crazy, it still costs more to raise your own chickens. Um, and they go through molting periods. Once they reach about a year and a half or 2 years old, they're producing less. Like, there's so much to learn, and it's not just snap your fingers, you instantly have a whole bunch of eggs and they're free. That's not how it works. But my point is that I never did this because I needed to be self-sufficient with my eggs. Because 'cause I'm not. Still to this day, a decade into having chickens, I am not self-sufficient with my chickens. Um, we do occasionally have, um, broody hens, or we have incubators, and we will occasionally, um, have our own chicks, but more often I buy the chicks. It's just an easier process, and I really don't like incubators. We have had on and off success with that. I will leave an article if you'd like to know more about that. I'll leave the article in the show notes with a lot of things we did learn about incubating your own, but it's easier to buy them, and typically, more so than not, that is the choice that I take or the route that I take, and they are fed feed that I get at Tractor Supply. Now they're free range and they eat a whole lot of other things and they are given lots of wonderful food scraps and they love their favorite place in the world is the compost pile. So they have a very varied diet, but I do feed them chicken feed from Tractor Supply. Like they would not have enough food or enough protein otherwise. In fact, in the winter months, I've realized I need to give them cat food in addition to the chicken food because without that added protein, I get 0 eggs in the winter. It gets just too cold and they need to reserve all their resources if they don't get enough protein in their food. So they really need the extra protein in the winter, and cat food does that. Um, but I'm not self sufficient in any way after a decade of doing this whole chicken thing. And I'm still learning too. So it's a good thing. I'm glad we have chickens. I'm thankful. Um, but I need Tractor Supply. I'm gonna need a new coop soon. It'd be very hard to build a coop from the raw materials of the woods. I'm sure you could do it, but I wouldn't know how. So I'm gonna rely on someone else to help me have a coop for the chickens. The one we have now, by the way, maybe I should say, is probably at least 100 years old. The house that we live in is, we think it was probably built around 1800. It's the best that we can figure based on a few things we have found in the history of the town and maps of the town, etc. Um, but the coop is really old. And although I love it, it literally is to the point that it can't be repaired and patched anymore. It's very sad. So that's just a side note. But we need each other is what I'm getting at. We all need someone else. We can't do it all ourselves. So it's okay to be, the weird one, the one who shows up with chicken poo on your shoes. I'm going to tell you right now, that was me this morning. I looked down, I sat down where I was, I looked down and went, daggone it. And, it's not my intention to be gross and have chicken poop on my shoes. It's really not. It's just, I don't know. It happens. I'm that weird one. And it's okay to be the weird one who literally grows weeds and dehydrates the roots. That would be me too. I grow what other people would say are weeds, chicory. I grew ashwagandha this year. The last episode, we talked about that. That was a fun episode. If you haven't listened, go catch it. And I dehydrated the roots for all the medicinal benefits of the ashwagandha. So it's okay to be the weird one, and others might call you weird, and I'm totally fine with that too. I mean, after all, there's a Van Gogh quote. Van Gogh was poor guy. He had a lot of problems. He was a little, ugh, it's negative to say messed up. I hate being so negative, but he was a little messed up. Poor guy. Um, but I love his art. He's one of my favorite artists, and he had a quote that said, normality is a paved road. It is comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow there. So it's okay with me that I'm not normal because I love the flowers. I don't need to be comfortable. It's okay for you guys too if you're in that same kind of situation or you're working towards being weird. But we need each other. We're not self sufficient. And that's the way it should be. It's good that for each of us, the journey looks different. We're all unique, right? Like I said, we're all unique in the skills we have, the ones that we're going to master, and we can all encourage each other and help each other. And the situation with the horrible hurricane that devastated such a large area of our country this year, we can be, praying for each other. That's one thing we can do that absolutely does make a difference if we can't physically help the needs in some way. But we can't be self sufficient and we can't really be prepared. That's the thing. These people who are trying to sell their e courses and trying to sell their meal kits to help you be self sufficient, what they don't tell you, they're telling you you can be prepared for any natural disaster. You really can. And I think it's just so bizarre that they chose to use a natural disaster to try and prove that you can be prepared when it was so obvious that they couldn't really be prepared and that so many people desperately needed the help of others. So that's another thing another problem I have with, if you tout self-preparedness too much, then not only do you have some people who are becoming quite pharisaical, quite holier than thou that, well, if you had been prepared like me, you wouldn't be in this situation. But you also just have people that are thinking, um, we see people as bulletproof sometimes when we get too far down that rabbit hole of following all the preppers and all that. And it makes us not quite as eager to be helpful. And we all need help at different stages, different times. We need it. So I hate it that it causes people to close up and go in their shell. At least I that's my belief that I sometimes see people doing that. Um, so what do as I told you that all this, I do see it relating to Christmas. It absolutely relates to my faith. And if you're not a believer or if you're not a Christian, you are of a different religion, I still think what I'm going to share with you is very impactful and will have meaning. That is my hope. Um, Also, I mean, we are told that as Christians that his word will not return void. So I have a few pieces of scripture that I'm going to share with you just because this truly is, these are the verses that come to mind whenever I am talking about these topics. There are two of them actually from Second Corinthians. Paul was an apostle who wrote a lot of books in the New Testament, and his story is very amazing. Um, and he has a lot of great insight. In Second Corinthians 12:9, he said, um, he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So we will never be sufficient, but the grace of God that has covered our sins and paid the penalty for our sins is sufficient. We won't be, and that is what we need. And if we tend to think that we're working towards our insufficiency, then guess what? We're taking the wheel of the car and we are literally driving off the cliff. When we think we have it all under control and we are sufficient, that's probably when we're about to pummel ourselves down into the ravine. um, but his power is made perfect in our weakness. And I love that, as well as another verse in Second Corinthians about jars of clay, because I have always, I'm not just saying this, I've always known that I'm weak and I've always seen my own weakness. And I'm thankful, honestly, that I can be, I guess, humble. Like humility has never been a problem for me because I've just always felt insufficient. And I don't say that to get anyone to say, "Oh no, Michelle, don't feel it." No, no, it's okay. I'm actually glad that I realize I am lacking in so many ways. Um, So Paul talks about the jars of clay. The verse is in chapter 4 of Second Corinthians. He says, "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. We're persecuted, but not forsaken. We're struck down, but not destroyed." So the verses start off with this idea of a treasure. First of all, what is the treasure he's talking about? The verse before this tells us that it is the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. So the glory of God and Christ himself, which is, of course, God, come down to earth at Christmas time. That is what the treasure is. And what are these jars of clay? That phrase is referring to us. You see, Paul in his day was surrounded by jars of clay. Like everything they did involved jars of clay. It was the vessels of common day use that they used all the time for everything. I mean, it was kind of like the equivalence of a Helmets mayonnaise jar to us, or a mustard jar, or a salt and pepper shaker. It's just an everyday common thing. And he's saying, we have the treasure of the glory of God and the fact that Christ came to earth to save us. We have that treasure right here in us, in our daily lives, in our own abilities, in our talents, and our gifts that we're using. We have that, but we are jars of clay. We're just a regular old disposable plastic mayonnaise jar. But worse than that, the jars of clay were very fragile. We think that a glass is fragile, like something made of glass or glass jar. I'm not talking about a mason jar, although they will certainly break too, but a thinner glass jar or glass that you use for drinking, they're very fragile. That's what I think. You drop that, it's going to be broken, it's going to be trash. Well, a clay jar was even more fragile than that. We don't really have anything in our daily, I mean, maybe crystal, maybe, I don't know, that you can equate to the fragility of clay jars in Paul's day. And so they were very common. They were everywhere just everywhere, just simple everyday things. And they were very fragile. And Paul is saying, that's what we are. We have a treasure in jars of clay. Why? Why on earth would God choose to put the glory of himself in these jars of clay, these everyday, common, fragile people? Paul says it is to show the surpassing power that belongs to God and not to us. We have no power. And the power that we do have, the talents that we do have, the abilities that we do have, the very breath in our lungs this very minute is only because of God, only because he has given it to us. He has created us and he has given us the abilities and talents that he has. That's the only reason I have the abilities that I do and I'm able to do the things that I do. And well, Paul goes on to say, we're afflicted in every way. So we're not free of trial. Of course not. Of course, we're going to have all kinds of problems and persecution, and we see it. And we see problems with the natural world. We see natural calamities happen all the time. And yet, until we get this glimpse of how fragile and common and everyday we are, we don't even realize how those natural calamities are so much bigger than us. But I tell you what, the one time that I personally was in the midst of a terrifying natural calamity that was coming directly towards us, we were on vacation in South Carolina. And at the time, we had two young children, Bill and I. We were with his parents. We were just on a family vacation. And we were in trailers, travel trailers that we pulled with our Suburban. And our Suburban engine was broken. It gave us troubles on the way down, and we had it in a shop. And I can't remember why we didn't know, but we're not storm chaser kind of people at all. We're very conservative when it comes to any kind of choices like that. And if there's going to be a bad storm, we are not going towards it. So I don't know if the weather just changed very abruptly. I can't remember that, but we didn't know it was coming. We were on a carefree vacation. Our car broke down. That was our only problem. That, wow, are we going to be able to find a good garage? Bill's a mechanic, so he was able to kind of, meet the mechanics at the shop and talk to them. And he felt confident, okay, this will be fixed before we go home. Thankfully, we're with his parents, so we have a way to get around. We don't even have to get a rental car. And before we go home, this will be fixed because we were going to be there for a week. Well, then we realized the very next day that a storm was coming. And it wasn't just a little storm, it was huge. It was swelling on the coast, and they were saying everybody needs to suddenly evacuate. So here we are, literally in the midst of terrifying storm heading towards us. And I remember walking down to the beach. At that point, we still didn't know what we were going to do, if we were going to just leave our trailer and all of us fit into his parents' van, and just leave, just literally abandon our car, our trailer. Because I mean, that's not important when it comes to your children's lives and getting out of there. Um, but I remember standing down on the beach and looking around and thinking how bizarre that just the day before, the beach was filled with tourists loving the sand and the sun, enjoying themselves, laughing, swimming in the ocean. And the very next day, I was the only person on that beach. And the trailer park was almost empty. There were a few lone trailers here and there that people were hitching up and getting ready to pull out. And the hope was, the people who were leaving that morning were going to be about a day and a half ahead of the storm. So plenty of time to evacuate. Um, the problem when you're in a place like South Carolina, that the evacuation route is the only way out. So everybody's on it and you are stuck just bumper to bumper nonstop, and people are running out of gas, and it gets terrifying. So anyway, We weren't even to that point, though. We were not sure what we were going to do, if we were going to abandon everything and just leave in any way we could. And I remember standing on the beach looking around and just thinking, wow, if we didn't know what we know by the advancement of weather technology, that there was this horrible, terrifying storm coming, you'd have no idea. It was a gorgeous day. I was just standing there in the warm sun, listening to the ocean lapping up onto the sand. And it was totally bizarre that the beach was empty. And it just struck me that we don't know all of the ways that we have been safeguarded and protected from all kinds of calamities we don't even see coming. We don't even know they were there. And it also struck me how very tiny I was. I was crying, not knowing what we're going to do, worried about, the safety of our daughters. And I just felt so, so small. And that ocean looked so enormous. And I think until e- any of us as a human is facing that kind of terror, I don't think that we realize how not bulletproof we are. Because I think all of us, even someone as humble as myself, I think all of us feel a little bit bulletproof. We feel like, I mean, we haven't faced anything like that. So I don't know. But I've never felt smaller, like literally smaller than a speck of sand on the beach than I did at that moment, and completely helpless. Um, we did within an hour get a call from the shop. The sweet, sweet mechanic, I can't remember his name. I bet you Bill remembers his name still, understood what was happening. And he knew we had, children and we were stuck. And he had boarded up his house through the night so that he could get back to the shop because he had heard the part had come in the evening before that was needed. And he went into the shop that morning when everybody else was, going crazy and the evacuation routes were loaded with people. And he did what needed to be done to get our car fixed. And we were able to leave and we got home, honestly, just about 12 hours ahead of what we needed to get things battened down at home, all the way up in Delaware, all the way up the coast. But the storm hit pretty hard even in Delaware. And we actually spent the night in our basement that night when it came. But we were home and everything was safe. And it was a very good feeling. I actually didn't mean to get into that story at all. You guys, you bring out the stories in me. I just love chatting with you. What was my point to all of that? um, I guess just the enormity of nature and the power of the creator of nature that we just don't even know. We don't. By the way, just a quick reminder, I want to pause and remind you, if you are still in need of some last minute holiday shopping, make it intentional, make it gifts that are going to be not only really well received by the recipient, but ones that are going to encourage them in some way with more family time, with better hobbies, with more health and nutrition in their life. I have a whole list for you. And there's a slew of discount codes there as well. And some of them even include free shipping. Go check out the list. It is at soulyrested.com/holiday. So go to SOULY rested.com/holiday and check out some of the inspiring ideas there. I think you're going to see a lot of things that you love. Go check out the list, soulyrested.com/holiday. So we are clueless, we are fragile, and we are common. We are jars of clay, but we have so much to be thankful for, and we get to have a treasure that we carry in that jar of clay as a Christian, knowing, getting to spend our whole life getting to know more about Christ and his love for us. And it's good. It's good to be a jar of clay. It really is. So I told you we also can't be prepared. And the verse that I always think about with that is that it's okay. I don't need to be prepared because in Ephesians, a letter that Paul was writing to the church in Ephesus, Paul wrote this: we are his workmanship, his being God. We are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And whenever I read that or think about it, it just seems so simple. Oh, I can't be prepared. I don't have to be prepared. God has prepared for me the works that I'm supposed to be doing, for tomorrow, for next year, and for when I'm 80. Like he's prepared the works. If I'm blessed to live to be 80, he's prepared the works. And I just need, the verse says, Paul said, to walk in them. Okay, that much I can do, right? I can do that. I can simply take the next step and walk in faith into what he has prepared for me to do. Yes, there's plenty of things I can be doing to prepare myself for whatever it might be. But the fact is, you know what I have learned over the past 5 decades of my life? That God will often ask of me, meaning he will put me in a situation that I am 100% not competent in. I am not prepared. I am a total jar of clay, very fragile, very common, very unable to do whatever it is that's right in front of me. But the amazing thing is, first of all, I learned so much in those situations because I have to step up to the plate. This needs to be done. It's in front of me. And of course, like I've been saying all along, there might be other people in my life that can come alongside me that have those abilities that will help me and that will show me what needs to be done. And that's such a blessing. But also sometimes I learn whatever it is I need to learn because it has to be done. And I grow so much. And I have a joy that I never would have had if I hadn't have faced that horrible difficulty. It's just the way life is. We, in the middle of the horribleness, in the middle of the difficulties, in the middle of the impossible, are sometimes the most wonderful, simple joys. So it's not doom and gloom, guys. I'm sitting here saying, you're never going to be sufficient. You're never going to be prepared. But it's all okay. Actually, when, you know, I should say this again. I'm always all about, just take little steps. If you want to someday have a homestead, right where you are, start learning any little small task that will be helpful then, right? Work in little ways towards it. And usually I'm telling you that it's simple food. Just get more comfortable in the kitchen, get more comfortable with real food, work your way towards it. And someday, if you're in the situation that you can have your own chickens, you can have your own pigs and raise your own meat and all of those things, you can have a beautiful garden. Little by little, you can be working towards it now. So I'm not saying sit back, do nothing, don't worry about it. It's good that you're not going to be prepared. That's not what I mean at all. But no matter how much you do prepare, no matter how much you start to learn about gardening, because you're planting in pots for now until you have a garden, and no matter how much you learn about fresh flour and you're ready for all the real food that come with your farm because you've gotten comfortable first with fresh flour or whatever it is, there's going to be something that happens that you could never be prepared for. It's just the way it is. So that is a phoenix moment when that happens. And it's a great reason, honestly, to be excited about the future, to know that, okay, I faced hard things all along. I've learned little things all along. And I know that in this moment of hard, it's okay. And it's a great reason right now where you are to work at improving your community, work at improving your health, work at improving your pantry. Start really small and just improve one shelf in your pantry or improve your fridge and just start to get healthy and be ready, even though you can't really be ready, right? You know what I'm saying? Even though you can't really be ready, you can do all the things that are really good for you now, that are growing you and actually showing you simple little joys in the hard. And it's all good. You'll realize you can't really face the trial, but you'll also realize, but thank goodness I was able to do X, Y, or Z when I was in the midst of that because I had learned it years ago. So I now feel like I have talked in a complete circle, but I hope that the circular reasoning didn't seem illogical. I hope that that all makes sense. But when things are hard and when you realize it's pretty scary that you're not sufficient, um, instead of focusing on the what if, ground yourself in what is. Ground yourself in what you're surrounded with. And when I was on the beach and the storm was coming and I was crying, I also felt a deep sense of calmness, even before I knew about the wonderful mechanic who was doing everything he could to help us. I still felt calm. And I noticed the beauty of the weather that morning in a way I never would have otherwise. And I walked back to our trailer and I hugged Bill and noticed him in ways I would have never realized. And same thing with our daughters. And I, of course, hugged them tight for the next 2 days, of course. But just the overwhelming thankfulness of the very, very basic simpleness of joys in my life was very deep and very calming. So, this Christmas, surrounded by so much consumerism or surrounded by the busyness and all the holiday things that you're preparing, or the family you're getting ready to see, or the family you're sad because you can't see, or maybe the friends and family that you've lost this year that you're grieving. In the midst of all of that, know that you cannot worry about the what if of tomorrow, and you can truly notice and enjoy the what is right now. And even on dark days or difficult days or really, really busy days, there's joy. And I really pray for you that you will see that joy. And I pray that you, in the moments that you feel like a jar of clay and you know that you are fragile, you know that you're common and you're full of humility, I pray that in those moments, that honestly, you know your creator and you know that there is amazing value because he has created you and he has prepared the works for you to walk in. It's a great feeling. So I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. I will join you back here in a couple weeks. I look forward to it. And thanks for listening, friends. Remember, it's easy to forget how blessed we are to live this life. But we are given a gift of time in very manageable units called days. And every day we have the chance to begin again. So enjoy the simple everyday efforts. It's not easy, but it's a good life.